Hi guys, and welcome to another video on data mining the social media. And today we are going to talk about collecting data from Twitter. So in order to interact with the Twitter APIs, we need a Python client that implements the different calls to the API itself. There are several options, as we can see from the official documentation, this link here, and this opens this is the link to all the libraries that are available. So we are particularly looking at the Python libraries, and none of them are officially maintained by Twitter, and they are backed by the open source community. While there are several options to choose from, some of them almost equivalent, so I'm going to choose the Tweepy for the tutorials here, as it offers a wider support for different features and is actively maintained. Currently, the website of Tweepy at the moment of the recording is down. I'm not sure why, but hopefully it will be back up again soon. At least the library is working. I've tested it. So in order to install Tweepy, you use the pip install and Tweepy. So we are going to set up this Twitter application in multiple parts. And the first part of the interaction with the Twitter API involves setting up the authentication, as discussed in the previous section. After registering your application, at this point you should have a consumer key, consumer secret, access token, and access token secret. So in order to promote the separation of concerns between application logic and configuration, we're storing the credentials in environment variables. So maybe you're asking, why not just hard code these values as Python variables? And there are a few reasons for this, well summarized in the 12-factor manifesto that you can find here. And you can also follow this link that is here. So what this article says is that using the environment to store configuration details is language and OS agnostic. Changing configuration between different deployments, for example using personal credentials for local tests and a company account for production, and it doesn't require any change in the code base. Moreover, environment variables don't get accidentally checked into your source control system for everyone to see and use, so it's better to separate the configuration and variables in the OS. So in Unix environments such as Linux or Mac OS, if your shell is bash, you can set the environment variables as described here. And remember to do not have spaces in between here, and do not use the quotes here. Just write it plainly, your Twitter consumer key, your Twitter consumer secret, Twitter access token, and Twitter access secret. And this is for Linux and Mac OS. And in Windows environment, you can set the variables from the command line by using this. And again here, no spaces and don't use the quotes. Just write your variables without the cursors. And as I mentioned, the command should be repeated for all the 4 variables we need. And once the environment is set up, we will wrap the TWP calls to create the Twitter client into two functions. One that reads the environment variables and performs the authentication, and the other that creates the API object needed to interface with Twitter. So I'm going to write out the code, so please have patience. Some of you have reported back it's better that I type the code instead of just showing you on the screen what I've written. And I'll also try to explain as we go. We do the auth handler, do the imports, and then we define a function. So I'll write some comment here so that you can understand. It should be self-explanatory. So this function should return the 2D auth handler object. And just to tell you that I already set all 4 of my variables here already in the command prompt. So you should do the same as described. So here we are setting the variables here are that to take it from the OS environment. That we already set. This is the access token. And then we have the secret. Keydokes, and then we have to have the exception in case something goes wrong. Give in case it goes wrong, it should give us a message back. And exit the program with the option 1. That means that it exits the program and it exits with telling us, giving us feedback that there was a problem encountered. Secrets. And we need to set the token, access token, and access secret. Token, access secret. There we go. And now we need to define another function. This is for setting up the API client, and this should return the Tweepy API object. So it calls the authorization function, get Twitter authorization function, and the client is API authorized, and return the client. So let's save this file. This is the client. So the get Twitter auth, this function, is responsible for the authentication, and the try except block shows how to read the environment variables. The OS module contains a dictionary called os.environ, which can be accessed by a key, just like a regular dictionary. If one of the Twitter environment variables is missing, trying to access the key will raise a key error exception, which we will capture in order to show an error message and exit the application. So this function is called by the get _Twitter _ client, which is used to create an instance of tweepy.api used for many different types of interaction with Twitter. The reason for breaking the logic down into two separate functions is that the authentication code can also be reused for streaming API, as we'll discuss in a later tutorial. So now we're going to try to getting tweets from the timeline. So now we have, this is the setup, this is the client, and once the client authentication is in place, we can start using it to download the tweets. So let's first consider a simple scenario, how to get the first 10 tweets of like my own or your own home timeline. For this, I'll write some code as well. Now we're importing the mod from our client file that we just created, and from that we are going to import the get Twitter client function. and we set the get Twitter client function to client variable. Get the first 10 items. Just for understanding, I'm just going to write that we are processing a single status. Okay, this should look good. Let's save this file as get home timeline. So let's try to run this file. Okay, we have not defined something. Yes, that is the problem. And authentication required. Hold on a sec. Okay, I think I found what was missing. I forgot to return it, of course. So here we go. It returns the 10 my first 10 last 10 tweets. So as a Twitter user, your home line is the screen that you see when you log on to Twitter. It contains a sequence of tweets from the accounts you've chosen to follow, with the most recent and interesting tweet at the top. And so the preceding snippet shows how to use tweepy.cursor. We're here, cursor, to loop through the first 10 items of your home timeline. Firstly, we need to import cursor and the get Twitter client function that was previously defined. And in the main block, we will then use this function to create the client, which provides access to the Twitter API. In particular, the home_timeline attribute is what we need to access our own home timeline. And this will be the argument to pass to the cursor. And tweepy.cursor is an iterable object, meaning that it provides an easy to use interface to perform iteration and pagination over different objects. So in the previous example, it provides a minimal abstraction that allows the developer to loop through the object itself without worrying about how the requests to the Twitter API are made. So iterables, an iterable is in Python is an object capable of returning its members one at a time. Iterables include built-in data types such as lists or dictionaries, as well as objects of any class that implements the __iter__ or getItem method. And the status variable, which we use here, the status variable that we use in the iteration represents an instance of tweepy.status, which is a model used by Tweepy to wrap statuses, in other words, tweets. So in the preceding snippet, we're just using its text, but this object has a number of attributes. So we will discuss this a little bit later. All the structure of a tweet, how it's structured. So rather than just printing the text on screen, we would like to store the tweets we retrieve from the API so that we can perform some analysis later. So storing, we'll look at how to store it, and we will refactor the previous snippet to get tweets from our own home line so that we can store the JSON information on a file. So let's refactor this one, and we also first we need to import JSON, and the rest is we should leave as it is, this part here. So that is dot because it's a file format. And suddenly everything stopped. It's back. Timeline count is equal to 200, and look at the 4 pages. Excuse me, my computer is acting up a little bit today. Wonders of Windows 10 and status JSON. So if we save this file, and it should create a new file, not here, but in here somewhere. I'm really sorry, guys. It's Okay guys, sorry about that. I was having some problem with my computer here. What I was saying is that when we run this new code that we have just written, and it should create a json.l file. It's taking some time because it's lots of code and tweets that is going to gather. Okay, I just had to pause the recording because it was taking so much time. But here we see we have a file here now. Let's go into our folder and look for it. And this we will find users. So if I open it with the Sublime text, it gives us lots of information. As you can see, each tweet has all of this information inside. So a tweet has enormous amount of data. So where it says 1 till 2, that's all data for one tweet. So the JSON line format, the file that we have just produced has a .jsonl extension rather than just .json. In fact, this file is in the JSON lines format, and you can read more about JSON lines if you follow this link. That was something else. Meaning that each line of the file is a valid JSON document, as I told you. So each line is a valid JSON document. So trying to load the entire content of this file with, for example, this json.loads will raise a value error, as the entire content is not a valid JSON document. Rather, if we're using functions that expect valid JSON documents, we need to process one line at a time. The JSON lines format is particularly well suited for large-scale processing. Many big data frameworks allow the developers to easily split the input file into chunks that can be processed in parallel by different workers. So in this code, we're iterating through 4 pages containing 200 tweets, each as declared in the count argument of the cursor. The reason for this is a limitation given by Twitter. We can only retrieve up to the most recent 800 tweets from our own home timeline. And if we retrieve tweets from a specific user timeline, that is using the user_timeline method rather than home_timeline, this limit is increased to 3,200. So let's write a script that get a specific user timeline. We need a new file. And the reason why I'm using a text editor rather than using the Jupyter Notebook is that since we are splitting up the code in different parts, it's much easier to use to work in a text editor. And for this purpose, I'm using Sublime Text. You can use whatever a text editor of your choice. To import JSON. And from Tweepy, we need to import cursor again. Cursor. And from our Twitter client, we need to import our function again. system, get the user that we are going to get the timeline from, that we'll put in from the system's arguments. This means we put Python and the file name and then the user. It takes the first argument from our OS environment. Call our function and we put the client as our get Twitter client function and the file name. Insert the user's name in the file name. Write modus. Underscore there. It's user count 200. Colon. It's important to remember. Status, we write it to our file. Separate it with a new line. And let's save this. As Twitter get user timeline. I'll purchase it another time. To run the script, we need to provide one command line argument for the user's screen name. For example, to retrieve a user's whole timeline well below the 3,200 tweet limit at the moment, we'll use, let's say, we'll take Tony Robbins, for example, one of my favorite coaches, and the Y guy. Let's make sure the file is the H is there, and Python. And Tony Robbins. Okay, you should have a file called user timeline Tony Robbins. And here it is. Let's open it. It's a line text. You see, its first tweet has a lot of information, and if we go to our online JSON viewer, let's clear this up, paste the first tweet and view it. This is a manual just to show you guys what kind of information you can get here. It's lots of stuff. As you see, this enormous amount of data here. So this way we can retrieve a higher number of tweets from Tommy Robbins' timeline. So in a similar way to what we have seen with the home timeline, the script will create a JSON-L file with a single JSON document on each line, as we have seen here. That what I have marked is just the first line, and this is the second line, and it's, you can see down here, it's enormous amount of 3,180 lines. Quite a lot of data. So the size of the file when we hit the 3,200 limit is approximately 10 megabytes. This one is 15 megabytes. Conceptually, the code to get a user timeline is very similar to the one that retrieves the home timeline. The only difference is in the single command line argument used to specify the Twitter handle for the user we are interested in. So up to this point, the only attribute for a single tweet that we have used through the Tweepy interface is _JSON, which has been used to store the original JSON response. This one here. And in the next section we are going to discuss the details of the structure of a tweet before moving on to other ways to get data from Twitter. So this is it for this tutorial lesson. So I hope to see you in the next lesson, and if you enjoyed the video, please like the video and subscribe. If you have any comments, please leave a comment and support me in any way you can. Thank you, and see you in the next video.